record as usual. Probably should have recorded that intro. There we go. And I'll turn it over to you. Do you want people to just ask questions as you go, Gabs, or put it in the chat?
Yeah, I think drop them in the chat would be good. And then
Sure.
depending on where I'm at in the presentation, I'll either answer them right away or I'll answer them at the end. We do have some time dedicated at the end for some Q&A as well.
Perfect.
But I know that like sometimes when I'm saying something, something will spark a question and I don't want you to
Mhm.
like try to hold it on. I'd rather you just pop it in there right away and then I can come back to it whenever.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me. I can't believe it's been a year. I also remember us emailing about this in January, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how are we already at the end of October? It's how fast this year is going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very excited about today's conversation. I think it's very fitting given where some businesses are at this time of the year usually. So it's a good time to have my presentations kind of at this time of the year, just because I think it's the time where everyone's kind of reflecting on what's next for the remaining of the quarter or going into the new year. So just curious if anyone's business ever feels like this sometimes, the sticky notes everywhere, everything kind of scattered, the notifications, the busy calendars. I'm sure we've all felt this either sometimes or all the time when it comes to our business. And you feel like if you were to take a week off or if you were to sign out of Slack or something, everything would just maybe crumble a little bit. And a lot of CEOs I find are like kind of in the between of, am I growing or am I scaling? And those are two very different things. And that's what we're going to talk about today is there's, the growing fast side of things that people experience at certain points in their business. And then there's the scaling sustainably is the other piece that everyone's trying to, kind of balance, I think. So that is what we'll be going over today is the difference between growing and scaling your business and why it matters in knowing where you are, where you're shifting your focus on whether that's growth or scaling. So, a little bit about me. I am Gabrielle Tongle. I'm the founder and CEO of Assist Her Agency. We've been around for coming up on 5 years in December. I have been a freelancer though since what year is that? 2016. So almost 10 years. And I've had a few different journeys, some fun facts about me. So, like I said, I started virtual assisting back in 2016. I was a one woman show up until December 2020. And that's why, like I said, coming up in December, we will be doing 5 years. Today, we are a team of 10. I do have the intentions of keeping the agency very boutique style and just like intimate. I think it's amazing when people have big, big teams, but 10 is a lot in itself. And we kind of get a little bit into that later on in this presentation of, that leadership and that management piece to everything when you're scaling. I actually almost quit being a VA completely to pursue being an online fitness coach, but that didn't last very long. I am Canadian as well, and I'm a professional bodybuilder. I'm also a micro social media influencer since 2013. And I love collecting the Starbucks mugs in every city that I travel to. So just a little bit about me before I talk to you for the next 45 minutes. So with that, what you guys will be learning today is, the growth versus scaling and the real difference. The burnout trap is what I like to call it, the beginner friendly scaling strategies and building for sustainable success. So we're going to start with, again, like the biggest misconception in business when it comes to growth and that automatically equaling progress. And then I'll walk you through the practical steps on how you can start scaling versus being in the growth phase. So growth does not equal scaling. Growth adds while scaling multiplies. I think that's the biggest thing that people get confused about is that they use it kind of interchangeably. Whenever you talk to peers in your space or clients that you might be working with, they'll be like, "Oh, I want to grow and scale." And it's like, "Okay, but are you growing or are you scaling?" Because it's very challenging to kind of do both at the same time, I would say. Growth usually means adding more clients, more offers, more hours, and scaling is more so already multiplying what you're already doing without multiplying your workload. So think of growth as like climbing stairs and think of scaling as like building the escalator so that it's like constantly revolving and you're getting more done within the same amount of time. So when you grow, you're climbing one step at a time. It's exhausting, but you keep moving up. When you're scaling, you've built the escalator. So you're doing the same motion, but you're getting further. And others can join you too along the way. So that is like the main kind of mindset I want you to go into it as we talk about growth and scaling over the next little bit here. So how many of you guys are in like growth right now or scaling, knowing kind of the difference of growth is more building, or sorry, adding more, and scaling is more multiplying. So like it could be expanding your team, it could be delegating. So curious where everyone kind of feels knowing the bit about growth and scaling right now. As you guys think about that, why this matters. So when you know exactly where you are in business, it's a lot easier to make decisions. And that's why I say it's very challenging to do both at the same time. And burnout is a real thing that everyone talks about very often as CEOs. And the truth is that most burnout doesn't actually come from working too much. It more so comes from working unclearly. You're kind of all over the place. Everything feels urgent. You're guessing what to fix first. You're losing a bit of control, and that's just draining your overall energy and mental capacity, right? And so when you know kind of where you're at, it really allows you to get that clarity that will give you back that control. You'll start seeing what actually needs you versus what can be handled by a certain process, a person, or a tool. And then once you have that control, that's when you can finally create more capacity. And capacity isn't just time on your calendar. It's also, like I said, mental space. It's about also having that creative energy of being the visionary in your company or being able to teach somebody else to do something. It's being able to really lead your vision instead of being reactive. I think when we're growing really quickly, we're very reactive. And I get that. Like, we definitely have to do that sometimes, especially in the early stages. But it gets to a certain point, especially when you hit around the 3 year mark, that it's like, okay, how am I going to actually scale this in a sustainable way that's going to continue to be something manageable for me personally, for my lifestyle, and for what I want in my future over the next couple of years. So really, clarity gives you the data to make aligned decisions. Control lets you manage those resources intentionally, and then capacity allows your business to grow without you growing your workload. I think that's the biggest balancing act that we're all trying to face is how do we do more without, overdoing it with the capacity that we probably don't really have. And so when you can really hone in on these 3 C's, it really allows you again to just make those decisions a lot more clearly on what your business actually needs. So speaking of burnout, like I said, the burnout trap, you don't need more effort, you need more efficiency. And I think this is something that I've even continued to learn, especially over the last probably 3 years. And that's why I say like the 2 to 3 year mark is kind of that time where you're like, okay, I've got this incredible growth. Now what? Now what to sustain this in the long run? And I would say that at this point, like I said, about 2 years ago, that's when I realized that it wasn't that I needed to put more hours in. I needed to figure out how can I work smarter, not harder. And so when your systems in regards to like how you're operating, how things are done in your business, how you operate in your day to day aren't scaling, then you become the system. And that's when work expands faster than your energy. So that's when we get into that burnout because we're just continuously putting more and more effort into it, but not actually refining how we do things to make sure that it's using our time and energy in a way that is the most efficient. I think that's what everyone's trying to do these days with automating things, delegating, using certain platforms, is we're all trying to increase our efficiency. And so it's very important that you recognize that it's not that you need to put in more reps. It's how do you, kind of when you're at the gym, right? It's like, what moves can I do that's going to hit multiple muscle groups versus just the one muscle group? Like, you're trying to be more efficient with your time that you have at the gym. So that's something that to really think about when it comes to trying to protect yourself from that burnout as you're in your growth or your scaling phases. Um, so if every decision flows through you, you're not scaling, you're surviving. I think this is another big one, is that a lot of people think that they're scaling in their business, but they are literally the bottleneck in absolutely everything that needs to get done. So the way that I like to describe this is, imagine you're like a busy intersection. You're standing in the middle, manually directing every car. And it works for a while until traffic starts to pile up. Where scaling would be when you install a traffic light instead of you doing it yourself. So the system runs a lot more smoothly without you standing there all day long. Or, it's kind of like the conductor in an orchestra, right? You're not meant to play every single instrument, you're there to conduct. And so I think that's another big thing that people kind of catch themselves in when they're scaling, is that like yeah, I'm growing and I'm scaling, but it's like it's more the mental thing. Could also be the time that you're spent in front of your computer, for sure. But I think that a lot of CEOs find themselves in a position where it's like, how is it that I'm constantly feeling like things are still not getting done all the way through and people are still coming at me to figure out how to do things? That's when you don't really feel like your efforts in scaling are really getting you anywhere. And that's why I say you're more so surviving. And granted, there is definitely some growing pains when it comes to scaling, and delegating and bringing on team members, but there should be a short time for that, right? There should be progress in the onboarding and in the training so that it doesn't feel like it all has to go through you. The way that I like to describe my role now, as the leader or the CEO or whatever, the boss, whatever you want to put the label on it. But I like to say that I'm the person that comes in with a red pen. So like you can run things by me and I'll go in there with the red pen and say yes or no to certain things, give some advice, give some insight. But for the most part, everything is being brought to me with a decision that they may have already made or an idea that they've already come up with and, kind of fully flesh it out. And that feels better in the phases of us scaling rather than it always coming to me to be like, what do you want to do? How do I do this? How do I do that? So that's just a little bit insight on the scaling side and, what can actually feel like scaling, or not. So some signs if you're not really feeling like you're scaling, you're most likely stuck in the growth mode. And the way that the growth mode can look like is you're the bottleneck. You keep hiring, but you're still feeling overwhelmed. Your team relies on you for every single decision, and you can't step away without things breaking. So, exactly what I've been describing in the last few slides here, this is truly kind of that indication that you're still in the growth mode. So, when someone says, where are you at with your business? You're not actually in your scaling mode, you're in your growth mode still. There's still things that you need to work through in order for you to go ahead and transition into that multiplying stage that we were talking about earlier. And I think this is something that we emphasize a lot, even in, system build outs and everything like that, is that like your systems and the way that you operate need to grow with you in order to get you to that next stage of your business. Because oftentimes what's happening is as you're growing, you're outgrowing the way that you were previously doing things when it was just yourself or just two of you. And so you really do need to keep evolving that as well. And you can't just evolve it when you have different offers or when you feel like it. Like it has to be something that grows with you. And so I think that's why I really emphasize how important systems are. Like, I feel like everyone's so annoyed with me of how much I talk about ClickUp and automations. And it's like, it's not just about the automations and the ClickUp, it's about how much your systems are truly that foundation of so many things that isn't just about your business succeeding, but also your freedom, your time, efficiency, your productivity, the way that your team can work in a collaborative way. Like systems are quite literally, I always say this, is the foundation of your business in so many different ways. And so I really feel that it's something that people really need to hone in on, especially during that growth phase and even more so in the scaling phase, because this is what's really going to support everything that you're trying to do. So that is the biggest thing that I wanted to kind of emphasize there, is that, like, yeah, systems aren't just about the tech platforms and stuff. It's more, it's way, way more than that. So next I want to go over is the 3 pillars of a scalable business. These are the pillars that we talk about with a lot of our clients, and something that I constantly have to remind myself about. And it's about first simplifying what works, then systemizing the process, and then strategizing what's next. So oftentimes when business owners come to us and they are in that growth mode for a very long time and they're like, I literally don't know what to do from here, we kind of scale it back. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of people say this, where they're kind of like not knocking everything down, but they're kind of scaling back to really figure out, okay, in a simple way, what is actually working for us right now with where we're at in a business, as a team, as a CEO, and then kind of re-systemizing what that process can actually look like. And then you can strategize as to like, what is that next step, in the future. And so I think really taking that intentional time to kind of go through these 3 pillars is something that can really help give you that clarity that we were talking about earlier. And so, I was even just telling Meredith before everyone jumped on this call, like, where I'm at a phase right now where I'm doing exactly this, of simplifying what's working and systemizing certain processes, and then strategizing what can be next for us to sustainably scale, over the next 5 years. And that's why I'm saying it's very important to know where you're at when it comes to growth versus scaling, because depending on where you're at will require a different way of planning for what's next. I'm not thinking about the next offers I want to do or the next team members I want to hire right now. I'm really trying to figure out, okay, a bigger picture wise, what is going to work for this company, and what do I even actually want still to this day? Because like I said, it's been 5 years now. And usually, I don't know if you've heard this, but like at the 5 year mark of business is kind of when you start to think about a bigger change, or you start, you kind of just reassess, like, where am I right now and where am I going? And so I'm very much in this phase of my business personally right now, because I'm just trying to figure out, what do the next 5 years look like for me? So these 3 pillars I find are very simple and easy for me to kind of like compartmentalize where my brain is going and where my thoughts are. And so these are the three pillars that I would definitely recommend you guys kind of taking a look at if you're in that, scaling phase of the business. So again, pillar one is simplify. So start with like subtracting things, because complexity can definitely kill scalability because it's just overwhelming. It's too much to manage. And so really subtracting is, again, something that we're doing, is what products, offers, or steps are making things actually harder or are there just because. So we're simplifying all of that before we kind of figure out what our scaling plan is. So really getting that clarity of like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What works? Before we kind of step into that next stage there. The next thing is systemizing. So this is a big one that I think a lot of people can take action on right away. And it's like, if it's something that's repeated, you should document it, because it could definitely become a system or a process that can be delegated to somebody, and something that can definitely give you some freedom. So some of the easier things on that is like your onboarding process, your social content, your client handoffs, your offboarding, anything that is very repeatable should be something that is systemized, because this can just, again, increase that efficiency for yourself, for team members, for clients, everybody across the board. So again, if it's repeated, it should be documented. And not only that, it should just be documented in general. I think that's another thing, is that as people are thinking of delegating, they're like, I don't know how to teach someone to do it because it's all in my head. And so I would say that anything that you do, whether you're thinking about hiring now, whether you're thinking about hiring 5 years from now, making sure that you're documenting how you do things is very important, so that it can be something that is teachable. I will say that when you are in the depths of growing a company and you're trying to get some support, but you don't have anywhere documented how you do things, it makes it 10 times more intense to get that support. And that's where that frustration will really be strong, of feeling like there's no point in me delegating, when I literally, the amount of time that it would take me to teach someone is just way too long. So I would say that no matter what size team you are, really documenting how you do things is so important in any phase of your business. And so yeah, document. And it can be in a Word doc, it can be a Loom video, it can be a voice memo, literally anything to document what you're doing is going to be very powerful. And personally, for myself, I'm a big fan of Loom videos. I'd rather walk you through kind of what I'm doing, than writing it out. But anything is better than nothing, and you can always build on it, revisit it as well. So yeah, pillar two, systemize, is very important there. And even just thinking about like, yeah, certain processes that you go through, like rinse and repeat, is like very much something that will be helpful in systemizing things. And it could be, again, things beyond, it could be how you create an invoice, simple things like that. And is there a place you should be documenting? Yeah, so you could document it, like I said, in a Word doc, in a Google folder if you want to. We personally do it in ClickUp. And we do have an SOP freebie if you guys want to download that. It shows you guys exactly like what we put in our SOPs and like the structure that we have. And then we give you a screenshot of like how it looks like in our ClickUp. We basically have a list in our ClickUp that's called just like internal SOPs. And then, so for those who are familiar with ClickUp, the statuses are then like the different kind of departments or softwares that we use. So all of our admin ones are housed under the admin one. And we have a Loom video as well as a written process for it. So we have both. And then we also note, if there's any like logins that are required or verification that's needed, or like who you would contact for that. And then we also document who made that SOP and when it was last updated. I think that's a big one, is when it was last updated, because as things change over time, right? Like the way you do things might change too. So being able to know when it was last updated was very helpful too. So yeah, I personally like it in ClickUp. And even after this, I could do a quick screen share if you want on what ours actually looks like in like real time. I'm really happy with how that looks. And at a certain point, we even had it where our team could submit like a form submission if they felt like it was something that was missing. And so that was very helpful, of knowing like what SOPs did the team need, right? Like it's one thing of like, what do I feel the team needs, but then it's another thing when the team is like, I need this. So that was very helpful also. Um, Next up, we have pillar three, which is strategize. I did include a picture of Cash sleeping because I said vision without a plan is just daydreaming. So scaling requires forecasting. Once your foundation is systemized, you can finally make data-backed decisions about hiring, offers, and long-term growth. And I think that's a very important thing is that over time, not even over time, but I would say in the earlier stages, right? You make decisions based on feelings, based on what other people are doing. And that can get you somewhere for sure. But at the same time, when you get to a point where really being smart and diligent about where you're spending your time and money, being able to make decisions based on data is probably the most powerful thing that you could do. That way you're not taking as you're always taking a risk in business, but you're not taking as big of a risk, not knowing that the decisions you're making are data based. So I've definitely restructured a lot of my decision making to be more on that side of things than I have before. And maybe some individuals are a little bit have always been data backed, but I know for myself, especially in the beginning, given that I started this so young and just like there's not a lot of resources out there to tell you like where you go, right? Like what is your roadmap? And so being able to go based off the data has definitely helped me feel a lot more confident about the investments that I make in regards to my time or my money. So yeah, being able to strategize, knowing all this stuff is very much more intentional, I would say. Um, with that, I want to leave you with this quote of don't climb higher that until your ladder is sturdy. I thought this was a really good quote that we could all relate to, but I feel like most CEOs start climbing, adding more clients, more launches without securing the rungs beneath them. So again, your systems are your rungs. And so making sure that you have those set in stone before you keep climbing is something that's really going to support you in the long term. And again, I say this in a way that like because I've been there where the more clients, the more launches, the more offers, saying yes to everything seemed like a good idea because I wanted to grow and scale, but there's definitely a lot of things that I would do differently, like looking back at it, knowing what I know today. And yes, it might take me a little bit longer to get to where I want to go, but I do think that it would have saved me a lot of time, money, and headaches had I just known some of the things that I'm talking about today. Just I think the end of the day is like be just very intentional about what I'm doing in my business and just having that very as clear as possible game plan of like where I'm going and what I'm doing today. Because I think everything that we do today is obviously for something that we're building for later. So just getting really clear on that as much as possible would be something that I think could be so helpful for many people and no matter what stage you're at in your business right now. So when it comes to scaling, here's a bit of a starter kit that could definitely help you. And again, it doesn't need to be a full overhaul. It can definitely be something where we start small. And each system you add can compound into that clarity and that capacity. So, one of the first things, like I was telling you guys earlier, is documenting your processes. And like, you don't need to document everything you do in your day right now, but even documenting one process per week could be a good one. It's like the one that maybe takes you the most time or the one that you're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like just document one process per week to start. And then that can become two, that can become three, that can become five. And then another thing that's been very helpful for me is batching repetitive work. So for myself, I have all my calls mostly on Mondays and Thursdays. I leave Wednesdays for anything like this, where it's guest speaking or emergencies with clients or team members. But I like to kind of not switch my brain so much. I think that's the biggest problem with us CEOs is that we don't really time block very well. So we're kind of switching our hats all the time. So especially if you're a solopreneur, sometimes you're switching from a client call to marketing to creating something to copywriting. And so when you switch your brain so much, that can definitely make it feel a little bit overwhelming to be efficient in those time blocks. And then furthermore, what I do is like anytime that I have like a lot of, deep work to do, like computer work to do, like whether that's a ClickUp build or whether that's auditing something, I'll put all of my auditing things together, whether even if it's like 3 different clients, but batching the same brain that is required of me in one section is very helpful too. So batching that is really, again, just something that has increased my efficiency overall. And then getting into automations. I mean, it wouldn't be a presentation of mine without me talking about automating something. So automating at least one manual task, that could be per week or that could be per month. You can, again, start small, but automating something that, again, is something that is on a smaller scale or something that is repeatable would be a great way to save you that 5 minutes. And 5 minutes every single day, Monday through Friday, like that's still 25 minutes in your week. That's a call. That's a, I don't know, do your laundry. It can be literally anything that could take 25 minutes in your week. So even though in your head you're like, oh, it's just 5 minutes, really, really shift that mindset to think of it's 5 minutes that I could get back to do something else that's actually required of my time. And I think that's the biggest thing is like really thinking about like what actually needs to be manually done versus what doesn't, and what actually needs to be done by my brain, my body versus what does it. There's something that won't ever be able for someone else to do of mine, and that would be the way that I do a ClickUp build. I can teach others how to do it or have them assist me, but the way that my strategy is going to be something that is very unique and powerful to myself. Same with you guys, depending on what you guys do and what your specialty is. There are certain things that will be teachable, but there's going to be also something that people will always want your insight on. So yeah, automating certain manual tasks can definitely help again with that time management and that efficiency. um and then with this, sustainable success, scaling is how you stop working in your business and start leading it. I think this was a huge one for me, is once I pivoted more into a sustainable phase of business, being able to lead is a beautiful thing. It truly is, and I love it so, so much. I love being more the visionary, but you're also given a really, really big responsibility with leading it. And I think that's why having the time and the mental capacity and the emotional capacity to lead is something that you need to have time for as you're scaling your business. Because not only are you going to be the visionary of driving the ship of where you want your business to go, but now you have people who, yes, are going to support you, but you need to lead them in a way that's going to allow them to be successful alongside you. And like I said, managing a team, leading a team has been one of the biggest learning curves I've ever had to experience, because it's just managing so many different things that aren't even technical. It's different emotions, different opinions, different ways that people like to communicate, people like to learn. And so while you get to step into being that visionary more than being in the day to day, now there's other things that you need to lead, and make decisions on that are at a bigger scale and a bigger impact. And also leading the team is how you're going to keep that team as you continue to scale, so that you can be, multiplying the things that the business does and what you guys have to offer for your clients. And so I don't necessarily think that when you scale, you get all this time back. I think your time just shifts into a different way that you need to think and that you need to perform essentially. And I think it's just another learning curve. So I think that's the biggest misconception sometimes, is that people think that when you're scaling, it means you don't have to do much more anymore. But I think it's actually the opposite, that you're just, again, shifting into a different responsibility, that's not necessarily in the weeds. But I think that's where we need to be as the CEOs and as the leaders of our company and the owners of the company, is really in this part of the sustainable success. So I know I've like talked really fast apparently, so we're only 30 minutes in. I know Meredith is supposed to be about 45, but we'll leave actually I'm right on time because then we'll have 15 minutes for Q&A. But a quick recap of everything I talked about is: number one, growth equals more effort. Scaling equals more efficiency. Systems is that bridge between growth and scaling. Start small and stay consistent. I think those are the biggest things that I want you guys to walk away from today. And remember that scaling isn't about speed. It's always about sustainability. And that's, I think, the name of the game that we're all in with, being online business owners, is we want what we're working on and creating to last us a long time. How long? I'm not sure. I wish I knew how long my agency will be around for, but I mean, for right now, at least I'm hoping it's at least for the next 5 years. But I think that's the main thing, is like the more that you can scale things in a sustainable way, the better it is for the long game. And I mean, we've seen it in various ways in our life, but like, great things take time, right? And so I would rather it take a little bit longer for me to get to where I really want it to be, if that means that along the way I can enjoy it more, I can feel better mentally, I can support other people and giving them jobs that, are going to feel good for them too. Like I've definitely shifted from speed to sustainability over the last couple of years, because it's just like you can grow so fast, but you can also fall a lot faster too if you don't take the time to look at things from a more sustainable lens. So yeah, I hope these are the four things that you guys caught on to, as we went to today's presentation, and gave you some things to think about when it comes to growing versus scaling. And with that, we will go into any Q&A. I know there wasn't too many questions that popped up in the chat, but just curious on maybe anything that kind of has come up for you guys as we've talked about growing and scaling, and maybe where you're at right now, and what's holding you back from kind of the next steps for your business, or just kind of maybe some thoughts or ideas that come up in being wherever you're at in business right now.
Thanks, Gabs.
Yeah.
Let's see if anyone has anything. I have a couple comments, questions, also
Yeah.
things for you, but I want to open it up to everyone.
Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry. I got stuffy all of a sudden as we've been talking. So I'm
Of course, that's always the way. Ew.
yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I actually had like some thoughts last night going into this meeting. So I was like, I don't know, I saw some things on Instagram and I was like, man, like I could refine my business in
Yeah.
a way with when it comes to like my process. So I know you had said like you can put it in like a Word document. Is there like a certain, I think you said there was like a PDF that we could
Like a
download.
structure, right?
Yeah, like is there like yeah, like a structure we should follow? Like I have one right now, but like again, I feel like it's like all over the place.
Yeah.
And like of course in my head I'm like, oh yeah, I could do that. And then I see something on Instagram and I was like, oh wait, like I could that would be so much more beneficial. Why can I
Yeah.
not do it like that? So like right now I'm actually currently making a new template for me to use. So it's kind of why I was off camera there for a minute.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I was just kind of curious if there was like a structure
For sure.
um
So I
to
just
use with that.
dropped the SOP guide link in the chat here. It's a free
Okay.
downloadable for you guys. But I'll also show you what ours look like right now in live time.
Okay.
It's a structure that we followed for literally since we became an agency. So it's been very helpful in that regard. So let me just switch screens here. Um, okay. So hopefully you can see my click up here. So this is what I was saying is that like we use the statuses for like different departments of the business. So whether that's internal, we obviously don't have very many for Canva, ClickUp, admin, and etc. So that's kind of how we sectioned it. We use the naming conventions of our clients being like an acronym up here, and then we do like what the SOP is. And then, like I was saying, we have it logged automatically of when it was created, the Loom video that supports it, any additional attachments, who it was filmed by, and the date that it was updated. Now, when you open it, this is what the template would look like. So this is the template that we follow every single time that we create an SOP. So first thing is like, what's the purpose of it? And then it's like, what are the responsibilities? So walking through the actual responsibilities of, what this SOP is about, the actual procedure. So this is like the actual steps, like 1 through 10. And then any like definitions that we need, like for example, we use CU a lot to describe ClickUp. So being able to be specific on that. And then a big one is like reference or documents or like anything that's like important. So like I was saying, like logging into a Google email. I don't know how many times you guys have logged into one for a client and you're like, oh, I need a verification. So making note that a verification will be needed is very important so that whoever's doing the task knows to factor that into time. I'll show you guys another analytics here, but not analytics, but an SOP of what that looks like. But for example, here, right, like this is another one. You can see how extensive the procedure is here, how the purpose is used versus the responsibility versus the procedure. And then, like I said, we have the Loom video there. So just to kind of see more like real-time examples, this is exactly how we use it at our agency. And yeah, because we have all the different statuses and stuff, it's easy to go ahead and find whatever we're looking for just through searching like what I did, or if you look under the statuses. So this has been a very, very helpful way for us to document our SOPs. And yeah, I can't imagine doing it another way. And I think it's simple enough, but like also gives you all the information that you need still. And then it's nice because knowing who it was filmed by, right? Like you can go and like ask that person directly. So every time we also change it from one person to another, we also refilm it. So that's been a biggest thing that's been helpful because yes, there's an SOP on how to do it, but over time, as that responsibility shifts from one person to another, they might do it slightly different because of X, Y, and Z. So I do encourage that anytime that it gets handed over to somebody else, that it does get updated as well within a certain amount of time. Like I recently took over a task that has been done by someone for the last couple of years, but is my first time doing it this month. Well, I'm not going to film a new SOP this month because I'm still trying to figure it out. But maybe in the next like 3 months, I'll film a new one because I'll have a better like go at how it's supposed to be done.
Right. Now, this to me, this sounds like a dumb question, but I feel like it's not a dumb
Oh.
question. But is there like, does there come a time when creating so many SOPs for one specific task become like wrong? Like, how do I word that better?
Did you have an example? Like
Um,
describing an example?
I don't know. Say like a I'm an interior designer, so say for like a template for a design package sending to a client. I haven't changed mine in a long time, but like I remember there was a point in time where I'm like, oh, this looks terrible.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to redo it. And then it's like I go get another client and it's like, okay, I really don't like this again. So like I'm
Yeah.
gonna redo it. So I was spending more time like redoing like the physical template
Yeah.
um than actually like focusing on the work. Like now I'm super happy with the template.
Yeah.
But like should there be like I don't know.
A limited time that you like
Yeah,
best. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I definitely agree with you there. And I know the team definitely gives me shit a little bit on how often I'll fix something that they're like, it's not broken and it's literally just your own
Yes.
personal
Yes.
preference. And so I don't know, I give myself like 3 times, and then it's like, okay, you need to move on.
Okay.
And also too, it's like until it's something that's been brought up maybe 5 times by different clients, okay, maybe it's something to take a look at. But if it hasn't been something that's actually impacted the client deliverables at the end of the day, as much as it may hurt your soul that aesthetically it's not a certain way or it doesn't, look like another one that you just saw from somebody else, like you just kind of have to like turn a blind eye a little bit because your time isn't best spent there at this moment. Like I have times throughout the year where it's like auditing what we have, like we have process PDFs that we send to clients to say, hey, this is what, the next couple months are going to look like together in our project. And I like to revisit those every quarter just to make sure that it feels aligned with what we actually do. Yeah, things like the aesthetics of it or like the attachments that get attached to it. But like I am very strict with myself that I don't get to look at those and assess it from that lens until that time in said quarter, or else you just end up spending that time that you shouldn't be on things that's just not going to be actually needle moving for you at the moment. So I would give
Right.
yourself a cap of 3 for
Okay.
one, and then take a break from it, or dedicate a certain time of the year for it.
That's not a
And
bad
then
idea.
just remember that unless it has actually been a problem that's been identified to you by a client or a team member that's impacting the overall end result or the efficiency of the task being done, it's not actually something that needs your attention. So just keep that in mind as you're like, is this a me thing or is this an actual thing that others are experiencing?
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have one more question, sorry. And I don't know if this kind of portrays to you, but Meredith, I know you and I kind of talked about this in the spring when I was having trouble with my one client and you put me in touch with Susanna.
Mhm.
I actually have on my to-do list today to contact her. I want to update one of my client contracts regarding markup. I want to be fully transparent with um, my clients. So like I don't know, like should that become like an SOP being like, okay, like let's review the client contract like every year? Like it
Yeah.
like because I don't want I have a list right now, so I haven't emailed Susanna about it, but because I have a long list that I'm like, okay, like I would like to add this, but I'm like, now it's becoming the end of the year. I've had a few more clients under my belt since I first talked with Meredith about it.
Mhm.
Um, that I'm like, okay, like maybe this is a time that I should be tackling that and adding that to my agreement.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the agreements are definitely a tough one. I know for myself, I don't know what your package looks like with your lawyer, but like with myself, I basically have like a retainer with them that I can reach out at any point, and then I have an X amount of hours that are dedicated
Mm,
to contract revisions and stuff like that. I typically like to have a couple things that need to be done all at once versus one little thing. just because of how my billing works.
Okay.
So that's how I structure mine, but that's specifically because that's how my package works with my lawyer. It
Right.
would be something good to just ask your lawyer, like, how would you prefer it done? Because some lawyers probably wouldn't mind doing 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Some would rather
Hmm.
maybe do a full hour. Like it depends on kind of what their minimum is and stuff like that too. But also there's the very real thing that if there is something that is like a big problem that you just faced with a client, like it needs to get the attention like ASAP. So, for example, for myself, as much as I'd love to send a 10 things that I want adjusted, there was a clause in my agreements that had to do with soliciting that needed to get fixed
Hmm.
ASAP before it got into another person's hand. So yeah, I think it depends on the
Like the
level of
situation kind of
intensity
thing.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like I said, clarifying with your lawyer as to what her billing looks like, because yeah, if someone's minimum is like, say $400 and that's like up to an hour, well, then I'd rather use the full hour and give
Yeah.
you five things than one little thing.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was thinking. 'Cause I have think about 6 things on my list right now.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like waiting, and then yeah, now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, like I really need to add this in before
Yeah.
someone else is under my
Yeah.
person. So
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's personally what I would do. I don't know, Meredith, if you have anything to add to that.
Um, yeah, no, I think from an SOP, for me, SOPs are kind of different things where it's more like a documentation versus, um, we have in our ClickUp as well, there's tasks that need to be done on like, you can break it down like daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, right? So it would just be a quick task where it's like, review contract. And if it wasn't anything major, you kind of just dump the things that you
mhm.
want changed in there kind of thing so that when that task comes up,
Mm-hmm.
it's all there. But yeah, I think one huge learning lesson for me was just like record the crap out of things. I'll give an example actually, Gabs. This will make you so proud. So with Black Friday coming up, my goal is to have a bit of a rinse and repeat marketing campaign, if you will, that I can just keep reusing every single year. And so using ClickUp, I put in all the tasks that need to doing. I even put notes like as I was going through Black Friday last year, I was like things to remember for next year on things that we just didn't do correctly or as efficiently. And so redoing it now, it's brought it down. Like it probably took me 10 hours total last year to put everything together. And I think it was down to like an hour and a half this year, simply because I actually decided to record it, which was
Document it. Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just an example of like the power of recording everything and keeping a copy of it in the process, which I wasn't doing for many, many years. It was just in
Mm.
my head.
I think that's another thing, like, going back to the data-based decisions, right? Like being able to not even just like data for like, yeah, where do I spend money, where I spend time, but it's also like, what did we do last year that worked well or didn't work well?
Right.
Being able to what you're doing, rinse and repeat what did work or changing up what didn't work.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, I am proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm proud of
Thanks.
you for sure.
Um, does anyone else have any questions right now?
Okay, I have one more. And this
Yeah.
made me think of it, Meredith, when you were saying about keeping copies. But I do a lot of like my like templates in Canva. It's just super easy for me. Like I use my SketchUp too, but a lot of my templating is in Canva because I can take away the background like super easy.
Mhm.
So I guess like because I usually download the PDF like once the client is like ready to finalize, I download it, get them to sign it. But should I still be keeping that copy in Canva?
Yeah, I would
Okay,
personally, just so that you
okay,
always have a hard copy of it.
okay,
Just so that you always can edit off of it if you wanted to, or use it as a template if you wanted to. I always
yeah,
keep both versions just because,
okay,
like even like my guest presentations, like I've had this one for like years.
okay.
So
I have been doing that, so I wasn't sure. I was like, is this like a waste of space or like
yeah.
not? Because yeah, it is kind of nice to like refer back to being like, oh, that's what I did on that template. I really
Yeah.
like that, so I'm gonna keep it.
Yeah. And like I know sometimes depending on how old it is, like you can even see the history of what you've changed too, which is nice.
True. True.
I do wish that Canva had a better organization system. I know they're getting better with
Yes.
it for the years, but like I feel like they have to figure it out soon of like how to be better at organizing not just your projects, but like your they just launched folders for images
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And I'm like, you just did that? Like that's so I do think like I hate looking at like when I look at all my uploaded images and there are like
Oh my gosh.
so many and I'm like,
I know. I
I
just
can
did that
only
today.
see what I need to see because this is
I
just
know.
so so
I know.
yeah, I think as
That
long as
is
you
one thing.
have naming convention system that you like to follow, it makes it all easier to just search it. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
personally would keep a Canva file as well.
Okay. Great.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Some are for me
Yeah.
and some are for people watching because I know that they're thinking this too. So um, the lens that I see from doing websites all the time, right? There's some questions that we ask like, hey, what is your main call to action?
Mm.
So a lot of the time it would be like, I want them to book a call. Okay, great. Can I have the link to for them to book a call? Oh, well, I don't have that. And that opens the door to systems. They
Yeah.
also have been onboarded through a lot of our systems too. And so it sort of opens their eyes like, how the heck did you do that? Right.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of the time too, we will say, here's a list of
Things you could do.
schedulers, but
Yeah.
again, there's programs that are just schedulers, and then you have business management programs, and it almost becomes this bit of like a domino effect, I'm sure you
Yeah.
can imagine.
Yeah.
And and then it turns into like, oh my gosh, like I just do not, that seems like completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
Even sometimes they're 10 years into their business and they haven't used anything.
For sure.
And so I'm just curious, like as a website designer, not somebody that's about to set up their system for them, like
Yeah.
what what can I say to people in those scenarios? Because yes, of course it's overwhelming. You're literally like putting your entire business into a system.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a non-negotiable. Like I scratch my head thinking, how the heck have you gone this
Yeah.
long? Right?
Yeah.
So what would you say to them in those situations?
I mean, I think it's part of the entire process that they're doing with their website that, again, people don't really know is like part of that process. And so
Yeah,
maybe it's in the beginning of just like asking those questions of like, how are you doing things manually? Do you use a schedule or like kind of getting that research ahead of time
yeah,
so that before you even hit go on your project with them, it's like
yeah,
these are the things that you need to have sorted out or make decisions on
right.
before we can even do our piece, right? Like I know example for like Squarespace with Acuity, right? Like that's an easy integration for them because it's
Yep,
together, but
yep,
there's still that educational piece and decisions that they need to make of like are they ready for that for as well in their business. And I
yep.
think just like weighing out the pros and cons, if you do it, here's what can happen throughout the whole process of them being in your website and then
Mhm.
coming through with your call to action. And if you don't, like here's the route that we would have to go. So it's almost like it's no different than how I have to ask like what are your current systems and tech that you're using. It's almost like you might want to ask that also
Yeah,
because if they're using Typeform right now but Typeform doesn't integrate with Squarespace and you want to use Squarespace's forms instead, right? And like having that discussion, you almost need like someone, yeah. And I mean, tech very well, Mary, that's just given like all the work that you do with your business, but like you almost need that not I don't know if it's triage is the right word, but like that phase there where it's okay, let's talk about your systems real quickly
yes,
before we even go into website building because it may be a part that you need to give some time and attention to before we can even hit go on the website because what could happen then is like yeah you could build the website but then you have to go back and add all these things afterwards because they'll set this up a month later 2 months later, so it's almost like hey instead of you come kind of double backing on this project it would be helpful if you figured this out first before we got started.
yep,
That obviously delays the timeline a little bit, but I do
yeah,
think that at least asking those questions, maybe in the discovery call or on the onboarding form, would be good. And then just disclosing that that might push the timeline back, given whatever you guys might have to sort out. But I mean, it is one of those things that you think like, how are you operating like this? But it's not surprising anymore of like how many
no,
people still don't use a scheduler to what you're
right,
talking about because they
yeah,
don't want their calendar available to the public or they want to pick and choose who they have calls with, right? And I
mhm,
think that's something that business owners need to start making decisions on is like how important on a scale of 1 to 10 is it for the world to know your schedule, that you can definitely finesse a little bit to not actually show your full
Right.
schedule,
Yeah.
versus having the efficiency of their client journey being in a way that, we can obviously build it out. So I think it's just something that I've had to buffer into timelines of having
Yeah.
those kind of discussions, and knowing that if they do need to figure that out, it's
Right.
not going to be a week, most likely. And like, there's
Right.
only so much that I can support with, versus that's something that you have to talk to about with someone else who can set that up for you. Right. And so maybe that's something that you figure out, like, what operational pieces are you happy to help set up or
Yep.
not set up? And maybe having a list of people that you could quickly, connect with to say, hey, can you help so and so set up their acuity or whatever? Because we have a project coming up, right? Like, that could be a cool opportunity for your agency, is like having a set of contacts who can kind of help more on those operation small pieces that
Yeah.
they might not have set up, but is a relatively quick
Yeah.
thing to do that does unfortunately hold you up from your project. Or maybe it's something that can be done in tandem. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. You are our people for that, as you know.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, that could be something cool, right? Like, if it's like,
Yeah.
a project's coming up, but that they don't have acuity, they have, I don't know, type form, like I was saying, or Kajabi or whatever, and you're
Yeah.
like, hey, how can we have these two speak to each other? Maybe that's something that, like, yeah, you and I talk about, of like, okay, here's what's possible, here's not what's not possible, and here's what the handoff looks like from what you're building to what they've already have created or something, whether that's by us or somebody else.
Right.
But that could be a good way to kind of not feel like you're stepping into an operations world that
Yeah.
isn't quite something that you want to step into.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So,
And then my other question is, there's lots of program management, project management systems, business systems. Do you have preferences, or do you have preferences for specific agencies? I'm going to rhyme off a few, not agencies, sorry, industries.
yeah.
I'll name a few that are on this call. We have mental health,
Mm-hmm.
we have medical aesthetics, real estate, interior design, call it marketing. Tammy is a total outcast here. She's a seamstress for
I was
what?
gonna say, she's been doing
Yeah,
something for cold call, and I'm like, she is
yeah,
multitasking.
yeah.
Like, the focus that requires,
I know,
I'll
I
put into this.
know.
Yeah.
So like, are you, I know some are kind of geared, or they market to specific agencies, but you kind of like, hey, I think this one is sort of best for this agency,
Yeah.
or why
Yeah.
do I keep saying
Industry,
I meant
industry. No,
industries?
no, I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Honestly, again, it's not because I love the platform so much, but
yeah,
truly just given the amount of industries we have worked with the
yeah,
platform, ClickUp has been absolutely incredible, and like how it can adapt for so many different businesses.
yeah,
I think the main restrictions that I have seen with ClickUp is depending on the other platforms that industries are using. So, for example, accountants, those are probably one of our hardest industries to work with, because there's certain platforms that they use that do not integrate well with ClickUp.
yeah.
So it's causing a little bit of double work for them.
Mhm.
A lot of them still go to ClickUp, but there's just certain things that they have to still go to another platform for, and kind of double document in two places. So that would be the main thing, is that depending on certain platforms that industries are using, there is restriction there. I know for a little bit when it came to a naturopath we were working with, the like HIPAA
Yep.
terms around there was a big concern as well when it came to like storing certain documents in there and everything like that. So really reading on whether or not these platforms suit certain bumper lanes that you need to stay within is very important when considering which project management tool is going to be better for you. I always like to say, think about what you want to potentially grow into, whether that's how many team members, whether that's if you want it to be client facing, internal, if you wanted to integrate with things like Slack or Gmail, and really doing research there, or having someone highlight to you whether or not, ClickUp, Asana, Trello, Monday.com, whatever is going to be best for you. For example, there was actually one client that we actually recommended Monday.com, which I don't often do that, but because she sold horses. And given the platform that they were using and the coding that they had on their website, that's what connected really well together that ClickUp couldn't do. So
Mm.
again, just kind of figuring out what bumper lanes do you have to stay within, whether that's other platforms or certain security reasons that maybe ClickUp doesn't accommodate, or any other one. So
Yep.
really look into that. But honestly, all the industries that you've named, a lot of them we have already done into ClickUp.
Yep.
It's just going to kind of depend on, like I said, the other platforms that are non-negotiable, like even lawyers. We couldn't integrate like their payment system that some of them use. I can't
Hmm.
remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's Cosmolex is the term. Anyways, it's a platform that doesn't integrate with like anything other than Slack. So we were able to send Slack notifications to say payment made, but that couldn't necessarily speak to ClickUp. But instead, because I was able to speak to Slack, we could then have Slack speak to ClickUp on behalf of the payment system, you know? So like there's workarounds there too, depending on
Yep.
other tech platforms you're using in your tech deck, I would say.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I think it, and I think a lot of the platforms now are trying to be competitive in a way that's going to accommodate the way that people like to see information. So before, right, Trello was really well known for the boards, but
Yep.
now you can have a board view in Asana, in ClickUp, in what's another one? I can't remember the other ones, but yeah, you can have a board view in all of them now, basically.
Yeah.
I think the main one that continues to still be a debate is Notion versus everybody else.
Mm.
Notion, I think, is great for the aesthetics and more so from a personal organization standpoint. I think it's terrible for collaborative organization. And when it comes to like more extensive automations that you want to have happen or anything like that, like we have an influencer agency right now who uses Notion, but they want emails to be automatically sent when they hit a certain
Mm.
frame,
Yep.
or they want the offboarding emails to automatically be sent when they're offboarding from a campaign and things like that, and like Notion just doesn't have those capabilities. So I think that also depends on what platform's better for you. But I will say my main rule of thumb when it comes to the big debate of Notion versus others is that Notion's better for like a personal use versus it being more of a business and collaborative use, whether that's your clients needing to see it or your team members needing to see it. And furthermore, automations that you're going to want to do eventually that will have you use your time more efficiently, like we were talking about today.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything? I know we're like 2 minutes to 1 o'clock. And yeah. Oh, there's something in the chat. Oh, just Melissa saying she needed to hop
Mhm.
off. Okay. That might be it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Of
Um,
course.
I'm gonna grab that link for that free download too for the SOPs when I
Yeah.
send the replay.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind sending that over, and
Yeah.
with that, I can't thank you enough. I think this
Thank you.
information is like, I mean, I am also, a system and tech nerd.
Yeah.
So like bring it on. And I can't preach how much this is a game changer in business. So
Yeah, no, for sure. It's
um,
a lot to think about, I think. I think the things
it
that I
is.
talk about are like they feel heavy of like decisions to make and like things to be aware of. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to be aware of like where are you really in business and what are you actually doing and stuff. And so yeah, I think it's just very insightful and things that we sometimes avoid thinking about. But I think
Yeah,
it's things that
totally.
perfect time being at the end of the year to be thinking about it. But thanks
Exactly.
for having me
Yeah,
again.
of course. Yeah.
I love these kind of conversations and always great catching up with you. And thanks to everyone who attended today and watching the replay. I'll also send the slides from today as well so that
Oh,
you can have those in
fantastic.
the replay. So I'll have the link and the slides together.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gabby.
Amazing.
All
Well,
right.
thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.